hate nostalgia. It's the fast food of emotions. I mean, because the thing about nostalgia is, nostalgia literally means going home. It's inherently a regressive idea that doesn't ask much from an audience. And I felt like this film was inherently a progressive idea. Not how do we go back, but how do I get Fred Rogers into 2018? Who's a better advocate for these kinds of crucial issues we have in our culture right now about civility and neighborliness and kindness? Fred Rogers was kind of the closest thing I could come up with, and it was just trying to amplify that message.
I wondered, are there aspects of the film that came out differently because of the moment we're living in right now?
Sure.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
It changes the perspective on everything.
Mr. Rogers talks about bullying in your film.
Sure, and building a wall, the land of make-believe, all these things. The issues that we're dealing with right now in our culture have existed for a long time. I did a film called Best of Enemies about these debates between Gore Vidal and William Buckley, which actually deals with all the same issues of TV. TV is a place to either make conversation and civility better or worse. There are issues I care about, so I keep coming back to them in different films in different ways. And if that was a cautionary tale, Won't You Be My Neighbor is, a hopeful tale. We have these conversations as filmmakers about, are we preaching to the converted? Are we just talking to each other? And I felt like it was this rare opportunity to make a film that would play for people who I didn't agree with. And it's done that. And if that's the thing that's actually given me the most optimism, there are people who I don't agree with politically who have loved the film, and maybe in that way we can have some common ground we can build upon.
You were born a couple of years before the show started. Did you grow up watching him?
I was born 6 months before the show started, and I was like Gen 1 Mr. Rogers fanatic. And my relationship with him predates my memory. In making the film, it took me back to revisit part of myself that I hadn't thought about in a really, really long time. Making the film was like 10 years worth of therapy rolled into one production. It was very cost efficient in that way. And I honestly had no idea if anybody else cared. I had a number of people tell me when I was making the film, they're like, Mr. Rogers, really?
Right.
Good luck with that, And it turns out a lot of people were touched in a similar way. Mrs. Rogers, Joanne, who's an amazing woman, when I explained to her the film I wanted to make, I said, I want to make a film about his ideas, not about his biography. And she said, well, that sounds like a good thing, because Fred always said if anybody made a film out of his life, it'd be the most boring film ever. I said, well, I don't necessarily agree with that. But when she gave me her blessing, because she had to give me complete control over the film, she said, don't make him into a saint. And I can't think of anything a filmmaker wants to hear more from The Guardian. And I think part of that is to understand that he was human, because everybody in the world had treated him as this two-dimensional character. And to treat him as saintly means that you don't appreciate the hard work he had to do to actually do these things. And it also doesn't ask us as an audience to have to live up to it. I felt like that, with that blessing, it was this chance to really get into the human struggle that he dealt with. When I started making documentaries, there was nothing cool about documentaries. The only reason to make them was because you loved them. Yeah. And I did. And I remember 5 years ago doing this roundtable, and there was debate at the table of people wanting to get rid of the word documentary because it wasn't cool enough. Right. What a difference 5 years makes. And I think part of it is the filmmaking's getting better and better, but also we're making films that other people aren't making, kind of adult films that are asking real questions, that are engaging with the real world. And it's just scratching something that I think an audience is dying for in this day and age.
What was the biggest influence growing up that may have shaped your point of view as a filmmaker?
I started my career as a journalist, and I was definitely under the sway of new journalism. So my heroes were really like Joan Didion was a major hero for me, but people who were talking about nonfiction issues, but with a kind of a fiction way of storytelling and articulation. And that's something that I was trying to do as a young man and that I'm still doing in documentary, and I think we're all doing.
What's the first thing you do when you wrap a film?
A documentary doesn't feel wrapped in the same way it's like on a scripted film, that it feels like it's not really wrapped until you screen it for an audience. And at that moment, it's not your film anymore, it's their film. So that's the experience that I had on this film and that I think we all have. It's like, that's the moment you can celebrate. Till then, you're just holding your breath.
Hi, I'm Julie Cohen.
I'm Bing Liu.
I'm Tim Woodle.
I'm Rashida Jones.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching The Hollywood Reporter.
The Hollywood Reporter.
The Hollywood Reporter Roundtables on YouTube.
On YouTube. On YouTube.